Welcome to Got Grass, conversations with the legends and leaders of Bluegrass. You've enjoyed live Bluegrass at Guitar Town CT concerts in Hamden, Connecticut since 2008. From Tony Rice, Rouse Stanley, and Doyle Lawson to Tim O'Brien, Sierra Hull, and Billy Strings. Now you can go behind the scenes as we chat with your favorite Bluegrass stars. I'm your podcast host, Chris Worth. My guest today on Got Grass is Zoe Guigueno. Welcome, Zoe.
Thanks, Chris.
I like hearing about people's names. Now, your name, I want to pronounce it a different way. I'm not sure what. I want to pronounce it like Guigueno or something a little more. I don't know. I never knew that's how you pronounce it, was Guigueno.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not the first to be pulled to other pronunciations.
It sounds kind of like a French name or maybe even like Native American kind of. I don't know. It has some ring to it.
Yeah, you're right. It is French. It's from Brittany in northwest France.
So in Brittany, how would they say it? Would they say it the same way you?
Probably Guiguenot. Yeah.
Guiguenot. Oui.
Yeah.
C'est bon. Okay. So I always like to ask people as a first question, what's a perfect day off for you, like without music? Like, what do you do?
A perfect day off would be outside doing something physical and active, going for a big long hike, being in the ocean if possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Isn't the ocean pretty cold over there?
It is cold, but I grew up on the West Coast in British Columbia, and I'm used to cold water, and I'm also an amateur surfer, and so that would be the ideal day off, would be close to a wave somewhere.
So if you're taking time off, let's say in the water in the woods, are you also thinking about music as you're wandering around, or are you just like, can you just forget about music for a day? Is that possible?
That's an interesting question. I think everything that I think music can absorb everything else in the world, right? And you're always going to be hearing rhythms and sounds anywhere you are, whether it's like industrial rhythm and sound, or if you're out in the forest, you're hearing the crunch of sticks under your feet. I think I'm always thinking musically, even if it's like subconscious.
Do you think being out in nature inspires you in some way? Like, would you hear something or think of something that might end up being a song or a piece?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I understand you're from a small island, I guess, off the west coast of Canada. Island I'm not familiar with. I've been out to Vancouver, Victoria, and up and down the coast a bit, but so what was the island that you grew up on?
It's called Maine Island,
Main Island.
Mayne.
Mm-hmm.
And not surprised you hadn't heard of it. It's only got 900 people,
Mm-hmm.
maybe a few more now, but yeah, around 1,000 people. It does have a ferry terminal. You can get there. You can take your car there on the ferry, and it has a small school. And yeah, I grew up there, and it was a great place. You know, we knew everybody. Nobody locked their houses or their cars. It was really safe, and we were really free to
Mm-hmm.
roam. Yeah.
Yeah. So how did your family end up there? Was it for somebody's job, or was your family from there before? Or?
I think my parents found a house they liked. We were living in Vancouver before, but my dad is a writer, and so he can work from anywhere. And yeah, they were just kind of looking, like trying to decide where to live, looking around different parts of British Columbia, and found this house on this little island, and it seemed like a great place to raise kids. And my dad could work from home, and then he traveled as well, reporting. So we were there for 14 years, I guess, my whole childhood.
Mm-hmm. So can you talk a little bit about your musical journey and the places you've lived, how they kind of connect? I mean, from a little island off the west coast of Canada to, I guess you went to Toronto then. Is
That's right.
that right?
Yeah.
So can you talk about like where you went and how what music brought you there, I guess? Like, if is that possible?
Yeah. Um, there was a lot of music happening in this little community. A lot of people played, a lot of weekend dinner parties would turn into jams. And my parents both play and love a lot of different kinds of music. So um, it was always around the house, and it was always something that I was taught to value and appreciate and seek out. And I played music, like in my middle school, high school band. I had a little band with my friends. I had a family band for a little while. And then I ended up getting a scholarship to go to a jazz program in Toronto. So that's what took me out there. The school is called Humber College. And yeah, I did a jazz bass degree. And then I was living in Toronto for 8 years total. So 4 years of school and then 4 more years just living there.
Oh. I just was thinking about all the great musicians who came out of Canada. I mean, I was thinking about people like Joni Mitchell and Neil Young, Bryan Adams, Leonard Cohen, Shania Twain, Justin Bieber, I mean, Gordon Lightfoot. I mean, it's an endless list of great music from Canada. Is
Mhm.
how is that possible? I mean, it's a huge country, but not population wise compared to the U.S. But I mean, there's so many big stars and music that have come from Canada, even in the bluegrass community. It's just, I don't know, is there something in the water up there or something? Or is it something
Well,
about the culture?
it's not that small of a country. It's definitely smaller than the States, but
Yeah.
um, yeah, we're very proud of all of the artists that come out of Canada,
Hmm.
and there's really great music culture all over Canada in small towns and big cities. We have amazing music festivals um, in every province and territory. There's so many like bigger festivals and tiny little festivals. And when I was still living in Toronto, I was in a band. We toured back and forth across Canada every year. We never even went to the States or abroad anywhere. Um, so yeah, there's a lot happening there.
Yeah. Where do you live now? Are you in Canada now, or where do you live these
I
days?
I just moved to Eugene, Oregon,
Okay.
like 3 weeks ago, from Atlanta, and I was in New York before that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eugene seems to be a lot of kind of arts community out there. From what I know, I've never been to Eugene, but my cousin was a jeweler out there for about 30 years, and I
Oh,
guess there's a
really?
real thriving scene of arts and people out there. Is that still true? I guess it is.
So I've heard. I haven't really like gotten into it yet.
Yeah, you're too new
Mostly
out
just
there, I
been like
guess.
looking for furniture on Marketplace and setting up the apartment. But I have
Yeah,
gone out to a couple shows, and I have a couple musician friends there who are telling me about things, but I it's too soon for me to report on
okay.
on the scene
Yeah.
there.
I guess you got to live there for a while and just soak it up
Yeah,
and see what happens.
yeah, exactly.
So, do you have a personal kind of favorite kind of music, or do you just like music in general?
I would say the latter. Yeah, you
Yeah.
know, it doesn't really, maybe um I don't play every style of music, but you can always you can appreciate something if, if the feeling is there, if there's something that grabs you about it.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I I just like try to keep my ears open
Mm.
and would love to just like soak up bits and pieces of anything because it's all related. I don't think it's helpful to confine yourself.
Yeah, they love to categorize music. Um,
It's good for
well,
marketing, but it's not good for
yeah, right.
creativity.
Right. Yeah, it's good for the record stores because you can put, well, if they still exist, but yeah, everything was in a certain box, and that's how they marketed. So you've played with so many kinds of artists, so many kinds of music. I mean, checking out a lot of your videos and your stuff. Is there any kind of constant in your bass playing with all the different kinds of music you play? Is it still the bass, or is it changed depending on, I mean, I know there's different styles of bass playing. There's walking jazz bass, and there's classical bass, and there's bluegrass bass, boom, 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 boom. But is the bass kind of the same in all music in terms of its role, in your opinion, or in how you play it?
Uh, I don't think it's the same in all music.
Mm,
No. Um, I am sure I have what I have to offer. I have my strengths and my limitations. And I think I mostly get asked to do things, just through word of mouth. I mean, most people are like that probably. It's through my personal connections and um I yeah, try to just like see what like if I'm getting hired to do something, you can kind of feel out like what is the vibe here? Do we want something kind of straightforward, or is this like an experimental thing? Or um it's yeah, kind of like a case by case basis. You kind of
yeah.
see what you can bring.
I've heard musicians, a lot of bluegrass players, who say that your style is basically based on your limitations. Like that's what determines your style. Your pluses too, but the things that you can't do kind of contribute to how you end up playing as an artist. You have a certain number of things that you can do really well and you think you can do well, and probably certain things that you think you can't do well, and then maybe you don't even do them. Do you like you were talking about limitations? So do you see any limitations in your playing, or something that you're maybe trying to expand on? I mean, I know you're getting into songwriting and singing and guitar and all that kind of stuff, a whole different realm, but do you see limitations for yourself that you're aware of trying to overcome in music?
That's probably mostly what I see,
Ah, okay.
which I think is
Okay.
can
Mm-hmm.
be a good thing because you're just always thinking like, where can I improve? Um, you know, what do I need? What should I practice today?
So
Um,
what do you practice? Like what do you say to yourself? I really realize I need to work on this. Anything
well,
particular?
there's so many different things to work on that I think that's kind of the hard part is just choosing something and trying to like focus on something for a while.
Hmm.
And what helps me do that is like the work that I have, like the practical things coming up. What, set of repertoire do I need to learn for this gig or that session? Or um, I was doing a big batch of teaching recently, and I did a bunch of transcriptions for it, and so that was great practice, just great ear training and um, practice like notating the music and how to teach it, how to talk about it. Uh, and in that, it makes me practice my own technique because I have to show it to someone else. Um, Sometimes I'll just like put on a drone and try and just like improvise along with it for a while. I'm trying to practice like connecting, what I hear in my head to what being able to like play on an instrument, something that I would sing. So I'm trying to practice like singing and playing something at the same time, or I'll like record myself singing an improvisation and then I'll transcribe it. So
Yeah.
there's a million things. There's like rhythmic exercises. Um,
It seems
so
like singing, I mean, it seems like instruments, I guess, basically are in a way trying to copy the human voice in a different way, and that singing while you play, or singing something and trying to play what you sing, is one of the best ways to like get better as a player.
yeah,
Right. I've heard that from a lot of musicians too. Like I sing my solos, I play how I would sing the solo in my head, kind of stuff.
yeah, it's such a great practice. It really like strengthens. so many parts of your playing and your musicality.
I was talking to some really good bluegrass players who said that over COVID, they had to obviously find new income sources. So they were doing a lot of teaching online.
Mhm.
And one of them especially who's Jason Carter, who used to play fiddle with Del McCoury. He
Mhm.
said, I was trying to teach people how to play fiddle, and I realized I don't really know how to play fiddle. I just play it. I never really learned how to play it. I learned by ear and by watching. And when I had to teach people this stuff, it was like, oh my God. I asked him about his chop. I said, how do you do your chop? He says, I have no idea. I never even thought about it until I had to teach it. So what you're saying, I guess, is you you realize what you need to do when you're teaching that you might do instinctively for yourself, but trying to explain it is a whole nother world.
Oh yeah. It really helps to have taken, I think you learn how to teach from other teachers, really. Like you can come up with your own ways, but a lot of what I draw on when I'm teaching bass is like the way that things were explained to me by my bass teachers when I was younger or currently. But sometime recently, someone asked me if I could do some like singing lessons. And I'm just like, I just like don't know. I can't explain any of that because I haven't taken enough singing lessons myself to just like get that vocabulary.
Right.
Because otherwise, you're not very helpful. You're just like, I don't know, feel it. Just sing along to stuff. I don't just do it.
Yeah, well, that's good. Yeah, sing along to stuff is good advice, I guess. So just getting back to bluegrass a little bit, I know you ended up playing with Della for a few years, and how did you? So you kind of came more from a jazz background, maybe Americana or Canadiana and pop kind of stuff, and then you joined up with Della which was a bluegrass band, although they had their own sound, but it was bluegrass based. How did you get the job with Della Did you seek it out, or they came to you, or?
Again, through like personal connections. Before Delamay, I played in a group called Joy Kill Sorrow
Right, right.
for a couple years, and um, those guys like were my introduction to bluegrass. They were the people that introduced me to that whole world. I'd never played it before. I didn't know who
Hmm.
anyone was, I didn't know any of the records, anything. And so those guys like taught me a lot of even like we didn't Joe Kilsaro didn't like perform bluegrass standards, but we would jam them, backstage and whatnot.
Hmm.
And Wes Corbett at the time was roommates with Courtney Hartman in Boston.
Hmm.
And so that's how I met Courtney, and that's how when they needed a bass player, they knew about me and they had heard me play with Joy Kilsaro and they asked me to come audition.
Yeah. And then why did you eventually leave Della Was it just moving on career-wise, kind of, or?
Yeah, I just needed a change. I needed
Mm,
some space to try other things. I was in New York that whole time, but I was on the road so much with Della May that I felt like I wasn't really able to connect that deeply with the New York scene. And I had a dream to try to maybe get into a Broadway show, try some musical theater, uh, you know, maybe work more on my own music. I just needed to branch out and try new things.
uh-huh.
But then the pandemic hit like 4 months later.
Yeah, yeah, that put a kibosh on everything. Because that band, I mean, the Kimber and what's her name? The
Celia.
yeah, are both very strong, like front people,
Hmm.
right? I mean, especially Celia, she's like a dynamo. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Was that on your list of favorite bands that you've played with? I mean, did you really love that experience? I
Oh
imagine
my
you
God,
did because they
yeah.
they did so much and traveled so much and
What an amazing 5 years of my life. I got to travel the world with them and
mm,
um we played with Steve Martin and Martin Short and yeah, we just did went on so many adventures together and you know, made like lifelong friendships through it. Yeah, it was a huge part of my life.
yeah, that So when you're playing on stage, do you like to be part of a group, or are you getting to the point where you like to do more solo? Like, are you comfortable being in the spotlight as a solo performer on stage? I guess is my question, which seems like a scary thing to do.
I definitely prefer playing with other people.
Hmm.
I've done solo shows like just singing and playing guitar, sometimes singing and playing bass. And I'm not like against that. It's just so much more fun to have someone to interact with, whether it's
Yeah.
one other person or two or three other people. Um, I'm trying to I'm like pointing myself towards doing more band leading, and I want to be like performing my own music more. And but I'm still kind of green because I've mostly been on stage as a supporting musician. But I really love it, and I think there's some shows where I actually feel like pretty confident, and I'm starting to I'm starting to get into it and feel more comfortable doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. The only bass player I know, you probably know Nate Sabat.
Yeah, I love Nate.
Yeah, he's the only person I ever heard of that would tour solo just playing the bass and singing. Like, and I've heard him. It's a pretty good show. I mean, he's a very
I-
personable, funny guy, and he can pull it off. But yeah, it seems like quite a challenge to be up there by yourself.
Yeah, yeah, especially with just a bass. But
Right.
he's so great. I haven't got to see him do that live, but I've listened to his record and it's really cool.
Yeah. So you've done played on and been had quite a few albums of your own, and I know you said you were working on a couple of new ones that are coming out in the fall,
No,
or
they'll be out next year
next
sometime.
year. Okay, but they're in the works. They're
They
in the
are
works. They're
very
in the
much
works.
so.
Can you talk a little bit about, is it two different projects you're working on that are coming out next year? I know you
Yeah,
said one was with John Maylander, the fiddle player. Is that
yeah,
still?
that's right. Yeah. Yeah, I set out to just make a record, but then, things happen and it branched off into these two different projects. So one is with Mylander, and it's just the two of us. It's a duo project. My songs, but he did some writing. We did some co-writing, and that's an EP where we're both playing various instruments on it. We had a lot of fun just like uh, experimenting and improvising in the studio,
Yeah.
layering sounds and all that. Um,
Does that, so those are a lot of sung songs, you're singing songs on that album, or is it mostly
yeah,
instrumental or?
there's one instrumental, and then there's like five songs. Um, and then there's like uh, a recording I made like 8 years ago on my phone that fit with the theme of it. So kind of putting that at the end, and that's we're finished tracking it and we're mixing it in early September, which is coming right up. So I'm
Actually
excited
is in
to.
like a week or so.
Yeah.
So does John also sing? I've never really heard him sing, but I've only heard him play fiddle with various bands. Yeah.
Yeah, he does. He's not singing on this recording, but I heard him sing at a forecast show. And he has a really great voice, and I hope that he uses it more in the future.
Yeah. It's always surprising because well, I just speaking about bluegrass, a lot of great players who don't sing, you just assume they don't sing because they don't think they can sing, and then they do sing. It's like, oh my God, why were you holding back all these? There's so many
Yeah,
great singers that I think of, like someone like Jason Carter who sang, harmony with the McCurry brothers, but now he's like on his own band leading, and he's really a great singer. And all these
yeah,
players who are kind of in the side or background in bands come out and they really can sing in their own voice, which is, I'm sure, pretty cool for everybody. That you realize you can actually sing for yourself.
yeah. I think a lot more people can sing that think they can. I don't know. I think. well, it is like a very personal thing. It's literally just like your own body vibrating and the sound coming out. It's really personal. But I don't know, maybe we're all just comparing ourselves to others too and thinking that we're not, good enough to let other people hear it or something, which, we all deal with thoughts like that.
Hmm. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Um, I'm sure you have or have had bass heroes. I mine in jazz was Ray Brown, who played with Oscar Peterson. In bluegrass, I love Chris Sartori, who plays with Twisted Pine, played with Twisted Pine. So you must have some bass players that you like thought, wow, they're really something. And can you think of a few that inspired you in music?
Yeah, well, the name that always floats to the top is Danny Thompson.
Mhm.
I remember the first time I heard us playing, I was at a friend's house and they put on a John Martin record just kind of in the background while we were cooking, and my ears just perked up. I was like, who is that playing bass?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Huh.
I absolutely love his just his playful approach. It's just
Mhm.
like sometimes it wasn't, that in tune or that accurate or something. It didn't matter at all. It wasn't about that. He just like had so much soul. And
Mhm.
um I was really, really crushed when he passed last year, and because
Mhm.
I never got to see him play live, but he just played with everybody and he had such a spirit. And yeah, I really, really appreciate him. And I always love getting to see Tony Scher play in New York whenever that chance comes up. Have you ever heard him
Not
play?
familiar. No, I haven't. Haven't.
He is such such a great bass player. He's also an amazing songwriter. Um, but he mostly plays bass, and he's just so relaxed, and he's got this really slinky, growly,
Hmm.
cool sound. It's really dirty. Love it.
Did you listen to any of the great like R&B or soul bassists, like going back to like the Motown era and all those players, or that really wasn't? I mean, obviously that's before your growing up time, but some of those bass lines were pretty amazing. Those electric
Yeah,
players, yeah.
I definitely could use to study that more. I sometimes I think like just the best way to practice would only to be doing transcriptions, just going back through all this great records, any style,
Uh,
yeah, and just soaking it up.
yeah. Yeah, because I mean the all the Motown stuff, and then of course Paul McCartney. Those two guys, those two styles really are. McCartney too is an amazing, amazing bass player when you really listen to his bass playing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So are you? Do you collect basses, or do you have one favorite acoustic bass that you stuck with? I know some. I know guitarists collect guitars. A lot of bass players I've talked to, like Missy Rain, say, "No, I've had the same bass since I was 13. I've never changed." How about you?
Oh, I'm so jealous of like Danny Thompson was the same. He had the bass he got when he was 15. He played it till the day he died. Um, but I've never like I'm still on my like forever hunt for my
Mhm.
bass if I ever find it. I've just gone through lots of different uprights, and for a long time I played the Chadwick foldy bass, and I was on the road all the time. That's just the only bass I had, and um then I had this other bass in New York, but then I moved and I sold it, and I got this other bass, and I moved and I sold it, and I got another bass and
Mhm.
I didn't like it and I sold it. I
Yeah,
definitely don't collect them. I just have like, one electric and one upright.
yeah,
I'm really not a gearhead. I just like something that will, of course I like want something that feels good and sounds good. Um, but I definitely am not collecting.
yeah. So when you have a decent acoustic bass that you're playing with bands or recording with. What is it about that bass that is not the perfect bass? Like what is it lacking? What are you looking for in a bass that you haven't found yet, I guess is my question. Can you put your finger on it, or it just doesn't feel right? Or you're never satisfied?
Well, sometimes like I'll play someone else's bass. And I've had it a couple times, definitely where I've played a bass that either I can't afford or it's not for sale. And it's just it must be some combination of the setup and just that individual bass. I mean, just every instrument is completely unique. Um, so you can't necessarily just get one from the same year and the same maker, and it could be completely different. Like some years ago, I played Mike Bubb's 53K and it was so dreamy. And I went and bought a 53K and I didn't like it at all. Maybe it's just a matter of juju. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would, dream of something that just sounded so like fat and thick and it had like a really punchy, growly low end, but it had a clear singing high end, lots of sustain and what like felt good to play, but wasn't like the action wasn't too low. And also like the physical size of it is important that like the shoulders feel good. And there are just so many little things.
Yeah.
But
You
also I
think,
think just kind of know it when you find it.
yeah. It seems like everyone who's notable on an instrument just has a certain sound that you could put them on. Like I remember when I was younger, I went to hear the great jazz pianist Teddy Wilson in a terrible bar playing an upright piano with my mom, who loved Teddy Wilson. And it just sounded like Teddy Wilson from the first note. It didn't matter that the
Yeah.
piano was out of tune and terrible. And I think, people say, "Oh, I want to play like Chris Thile. What kind of pick does he use? What kind of mandolin is?" No, you're not going to play like him. You can play his mandolin, and you're still not going to sound that way. So, I
I
guess what
think
I'm saying is, yeah, go ahead.
I think maybe because that's like more in our control, we can get
Mhm.
this, these like physical things that we think might like lead us somewhere, but it's not about that at all. Yeah, like you're
Yeah.
saying. I remember when I was a teenager, I got to see Dave Holland do like a master class, and he was talking about this exact thing. And so he played, other people had their basses there, and he played a bit
Mhm.
on his own bass, and then he played a bit on some other basses just to prove this point. Like, you know,
It was
it
still
doesn't matter
him.
at all. It was still him. He made it
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
So yeah, when I'm also working on a record in New York with a four-piece band, and I just am using the studio instruments. There's a whole rack of basses and guitars there, and I just like go through and try a few out
Mhm.
and pick one and see what sounds I can make on it.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're playing bass, do you tend to tap your foot on every beat, like one, two, three, four, or you don't even notice that? I know a lot of musicians tap, like in bluegrass, either tap on the one and the three or the two and the four. Do you have a tapping style that because I was watching one of your videos and it looked like you were tapping your foot one, two, three, four on every beat. Is that something I probably don't want to, maybe I'm going to jinx you now.
Well, it's definitely not something I'm conscious of, but what I do know is that I love to move when I'm playing. I
Mhm.
really have a hard time staying completely still. I like to sort of, maybe it's a way to just like try to just keep my body relaxed, or just to have fun, to sort of dance with the music. Um, and I'm sure it depends, my toe tapping, I'm sure depends on like what song it is, what like tempo or groove.
Yeah.
I do try to not tap audibly because that can be annoying.
Yeah. I have this one guy in one of my bluegrass classes who plays guitar. I don't want to embarrass him if he listens to this, but he taps his foot really, really loudly. And I said,
Uh-huh.
you have to either take your shoe off or put a rubber It's just, yeah. So in music, is there anyone that you kind of see yourself following stylistically, like in their footsteps as a singer-songwriter? Is there anyone you admire in that? Because I know you're writing a lot of songs and singing more than just playing bass now. And is there someone that you kind of say, "Wow, that's kind of my hero in that genre, so to speak, singer-songwriter?" Or
I don't have like one person that I'm trying to emulate, but I have a lot of heroes and I, appreciate different things
hmm
about their writing. And well, just like yesterday on the drive up here, um, do you know Carla Bley's album Tropic Appetites
I
from
know Carla Bley. I've heard a lot of her stuff back in the day when I was listening to a lot of that kind of jazz. I don't particularly know that album, but I know her music a little bit.
Yeah, so she's she's incredible. And so there's one song on Tropic Appetites called Enormous Pots. And there's a song of mine right now that is definitely like inspired from that. I didn't realize it at first, but afterwards I was like, oh yeah, I think, you know, it's so cool what she does and what she did on that song. Um, but there's so many different songwriters that I love. I mean, right now I'm wearing a Charlotte Cornfield t-shirt. I love her songwriting. She's in Toronto. Um, there's a songwriter. Well, do you know Jane Siberry?
Do not?
Uh, she's super, super cool. She's
Okay.
like got a ton of records out from the 80s and she's still recording and touring. There's a ton of people. I'm not really there's not like one person I want to sound like. I just when I hear things I appreciate, I try to absorb them and yeah.
Mm-hmm. I saw a nice live version of your song, "I'm Getting Away with It" on YouTube. That's that song has a nice groove to it. It's a cool song.
Thanks.
Yeah. And there's also another one I saw that you did called Rad Julie. It was another interesting, unusual song. I was trying to figure out who is this Rad Julie? Is it actually like are your songs usually based on your life experience or a real person or you well, I guess that's my question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they're a lot of my songs are like the stories of people I've met,
hmm
whether it's a family member, a close friend, or someone I met once sitting in a bar with, or went on one date with, or read a story about in the newspaper, or um, I don't really enjoy like just writing fictional stuff. I mean, sometimes, but I really there's just like there's so many there's like no end of inspiration of just people, around us that we meet
Yeah.
or that we hear about. So Rad Julie is a friend in Victoria, and at the time when I had this beater car that was falling apart, she said to me, you know, if it
That
breaks where it
song is
doesn't matter. Yeah, and I was like,
it's
okay.
very relatable. Everything about that song was so cleverly relatable. It was like, wow, you can write a song about that and make it a good song. That's an impressive song. Like that one.
Thanks.
So when you're writing, are you usually on the guitar and kind of noodling around coming up with a melody, or do you tend to write a story or because you have a story or a storyline first and then put music to it, or does it depend?
It depends. It's always different.
Okay.
Like one time a friend of mine sent me a letter and that became the most of the lyrics of the song.
Mm.
So I set the music after. I can use like piano, guitar, bass. Sometimes I'll write something just a cappella. Like maybe I'll be out walking somewhere, I won't have an instrument with me. Um, yeah, there's so many. Sometimes I'll go through old notes and find an old poem or a lyric idea and start off of that. Or
Yeah.
I think it's really helpful to just keep switching it up and, let the ideas come in from any different angle you can let them come in from.
Hmm. Yeah. I want to talk a little bit more about bluegrass since this podcast ostensibly is about bluegrass, got
Yeah.
grass. So when you're playing in a bluegrass band, um, do you see your role as a bass player differently than say you're playing in a jazz trio or a kind of a pop quartet with electric guitar? Is the bluegrass bass role different in your mind substantially from other genres of music, or is it still just keeping time?
Um, I guess more than like genre considerations, I would probably more be considering is there drums or any percussion also in this ensemble? And maybe if not, I might feel more responsibility, like to really keep the pulse. Um, I wonder if I also feel, I know, but then like if I've showed up to there's a band with a drummer and they all have been playing those songs for a while, I might not be like as uh assertively coming in and being like, here it is, I would more be focusing on how can I lock in with the drums here. Like if it becomes like a definitely like if there's drums, it's like the two of us have to gel and have to be on the same page and be in the pocket together.
Right.
If we can't get there, it's not going to feel good. Um, well, and I guess in a bluegrass setting, that's with mandolin. So maybe it's the same thing. It's more about locking in.
Yeah. So in a
But
traditional bluegrass setting, the you would kind of lock in with a mandolin in terms of the rhythm groove. That's who you'd be playing kind of often with, more than the say the rhythm guitar or that kind of stuff. Yeah.
yeah, probably a bit more. But I mean, ideally, everyone's all like completely locked in and gelled and everything. But I definitely, yeah, see my role as like keeping the pulse. Yeah.
Hmm. I talked to people who play bluegrass bass, and how I was just talking to Jeff Picker about this, how simple it sounds and how unsimple it is to be a great bluegrass bass player. Because there's so many, yeah, you just hit the note, okay, 1 5 1 5, but there's so many aspects to hitting the note and how long you hold it, and I don't know. It just he was very analytical about bass and how few bass players in a genre which seems simple like bluegrass really can keep that groove going with the band. Do you have the same feeling about it? Like it's difficult. I mean, once you lock in, I guess it's okay, easy, but like getting to the point where you're locked in, is that a challenge in bluegrass?
It can be. I'm thinking of like the have you ever been to the Mona's Jam in New York on the
I've
Monday
heard of it.
night?
I've never been. I've heard of it, but I guess it's a
Like
big.
sometimes if a lot of people show up and are in the jam, it can be really hard to hear.
Mm.
And well, like in any situation, musicians encounter that when you don't get the ideal sound that you want and you can't really hear yourself or your bandmates, you have to just kind of commit and
Mhm.
just be like, here it is. I'm not going to second guess because as soon as you're like, and I'm sure I'm guilty of this too sometimes, like trying to waiting to hear some information, something articulated from someone else, but it's not going to get to you in time. And you just it's a lot about commitment and you have to stay focused and try not to drop. Especially
Yeah,
with bass too, if you like don't if you skip a note, everybody you feel this like hole that happened. So I mean that's something I
I
learned
know.
early on in jazz is like it's way more important to just like keep that rhythm than to hit like the perfect note every time.
Yeah. Do
And yeah,
you?
like so much of that is like your articulation, your sound and everything, because that affects how it's perceived rhythmically.
Hmm. Yeah. Do you use a metronome a lot when you're practicing?
Yeah,
You do.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard again bluegrass musicians talk about, especially someone like Tony Rice, who's they kind of conceived it like there's a train moving along at a set pace, 45 miles an hour, but on the train, things move back and forth, but the tempo, of the song doesn't change, but the rhythm inside of the song can slow or go faster, um, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great analogy.
So how do you can't really anticipate that when you're playing in a band. Like even when you're playing with Della May, I'm sure things move around faster, slower. You try to maybe keep a consistent tempo all the time, but obviously everyone's a human. So how do you, as a bass player, since you're kind of like driving the tempo, how do you, uh, how does that work? You're just gonna have to feel what's happening and go with it, or
You mean like if like you think that people are rushing or dragging and
yeah,
you're trying to
maybe a
control.
little more than not just a phrasing, but maybe like the thing is speeding up a little bit, or somebody's like, do you go with the flow, or do you really say, look, this is the beat, you got to get on it?
Um, I mean, I think it really de depends. You definitely want to do what's most musical. If that is like an emotional, something intentionally done. I like to do that in my songs, have moments where it kind of like takes a breath and then it goes back into time, or a
Mm-hmm.
certain phrase might be delivered a little faster, slower, and that is really intentional. I would hope that like the group would all be listening to each other and kind of like be in the same zone with each other.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
then there's other situations where you kind of want to keep people in line and try to stay really solid for people. So maybe if they know that they can have something to hold on to, but it just depends on
Yeah.
what song you're playing, what the situation is.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
it really depends on deep listening from everybody.
yeah, listening right would be the key to
Yeah, it sucks
playing
playing
well.
with people who are just like checked out and they're not listening at all,
Yeah.
which happens more often than you might think.
Well, I know with people who are learning bluegrass, lots of times they're so focused on what they're playing that they sometimes are not listening to the people at all, and they get, a beat or two behind, but they don't realize it. It's very hard to know what to do in those situations. Like, do you just stop and say, "Look, you're playing a half measure ahead of everybody else," or do you just hope they're going to come back, or do you? I find that very challenging just for learning players, like
Mm,
who get off the beat by one quarter note or two, and then but they're not hearing that difference because they're so focused on what they're playing that they're yeah. Listening is
yeah,
the hardest thing I think to teach is you really have to be listening to everybody as well as yourself. But I mean, you have to.
it's
There's
a skill that to develop for sure. It's easier
yeah.
said than done. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, but I mean, what you're just describing about, even if you are listening, it it uh it can happen to everyone that they'll get a bit lost maybe, or they'll flip the beat, or they'll,
Hmm.
forget the arrangement decision you made last time you rehearsed and they'll go somewhere
Hmm.
else. And if you're on stage and you can't stop, that's actually a really, really fun, kind of exciting part about performing, because you have to, as a band, figure out how to get back on track without verbalizing anything. And yeah, like a good band can do that. And you figure out how to do it just by having that experience over and over.
Yeah. Yeah. Good bands. I mean, people say, well, I just played a set, or I played a song and I made five mistakes in the song. I say, yeah, but the audience didn't hear them because you didn't go, oh my God, like you just keep going. If you stop or look at somebody like, what are you doing? Then the audience goes, did they just screw up? But if you just keep it going, eventually, if you're good enough, I guess you just learn how to deal with those things and pretend it didn't happen, and then you can talk about it later, like, well, I screwed up that measure, but nobody noticed in the crowd.
Yeah. Yeah. You just try to learn from it and
Yeah.
move on.
So was there ever a time when you were playing with somebody and had to kind of pinch yourself and say, "Wow, I'm playing bass with my hero or with somebody I always admired, and now I'm playing right with them. Is there any, did that ever happen to you? Like anybody that really kind of was awe-inspiring, but you were just playing with them?
Yeah, this was quite a long time ago, but I got to play once with Mary Margaret O'Hara.
Hmm.
Do you know her? Do you know her
I've heard the
record?
name. I don't know her. No, I don't know her records, but I've heard the name, but I've heard her name. I don't know
Yeah,
her
she has this
really.
amazing album. It's from 1988. It's called Miss America,
Uh,
and it's just an amazing album. And she she doesn't really like play out anymore, but, and I don't know if she does this anymore, but she did like a St. Patrick's Day thing in Toronto, and I went to it one year and got to like, I think it was sort of an open stage kind of thing, and um I hopped up and played with her. I don't even remember what song we played, but I never thought I would, get that close to her. I was just like pretty awestruck.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, in looking at your musical life and or personal life, like where do you see your future going? I know you're not playing bluegrass now. You're doing a lot of your own stuff, your own style, writing, singing with different groups and configurations. Where do you kind of, I don't know, do you have like a 3 or 4 year plan or something where you want to be in a few years, or you're just going to kind of go with the flow and see where the music takes you?
Well, going with the flow and seeing where the music takes me is what I've always done. And it's been amazing. It's taken me so many places. But something I haven't done very much is like initiate my own things and make plans for that. I have like a little bit here and there, but right now that feels like my main focus. And um, I would like to be bringing my band to different festivals and booking tours and collaborating with different people and just seeing what is my own sound, what can I come up with? Because
Mm,
every other band I've ever been in has been um, a band that already existed before I got there, and I stepped in and
hmm.
played the role of the bass player, and that's been great. But I want to, in a way, I want to kind of put the bass down and see what I can do more as just a musician and a composer.
Yeah. I guess if you play bass, you're kind of pigeonholed in a way, like, oh, you're the bass player, so you're going to play bass. Right. I mean,
Yeah,
I
and
don't know.
that's also really good 'cause,
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, it was a little hard to break out of. But I've got some tours. I'm doing a tour with Laura Cortese this fall, and I play a lot of klezmer music too. I'm doing
Mm,
a klezmer tour in December. I play in this group in New York with this woman, Laura El-Kislasi, and that's like a Judeo-Arabic
mm,
project. It's like a lot of stuff from
mm,
um, North Africa, 60s Arabic stuff. And I definitely would never want to just like stop playing in other projects because I really love that. I thrive off it. I just want to like shift the weight more towards my own thing.
yeah. Did you have some kind of a epiphany or life-changing thing that you suddenly say, wait, I really want to do more than just be a bass player in a group. I want to really, put myself out there and share my thoughts and feelings in music. Does that just happen to you, like, or it just kind of evolve? You just evolved like
It
into that.
evolved. Yeah,
It
it's sort of
evolved.
always
Yeah.
been a thought, and I'm just finally getting there.
Yeah.
Mm.
What is it like to survive economically in these times as a musician? Again, I was talking to Jeff Picker about this because, he's married to Sarah DeRose, who obviously is a very successful star. And he says, I'm a bass player. I play bass and I teach and I go in the studio, but it's not an easy way to make a living, even for somebody like him. He's in Nashville, he's playing on lots of sessions, but he said it's really it's a tough gig as an acoustic musician, and I know this just from talking to all the bands that have played here, to survive, pay the rent, pay the bills, and have a little left over for fun.
Mhm.
Actually Tony Furtado. Do you know Tony Furtado?
A little bit,
Banjo
yeah. Not
player.
that well. I
He's
know who
he's
he
a
is.
sculptor. He does a lot of sculpting and sells his sculptures. Pretty cool stuff.
I didn't know that.
That's yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. Oh, you should check his website. It's amazing stuff. He's West Coast guy, but I'm just wondering how for you survival um, is as a musician. Can you describe it in one word?
I think I learned really early on how to keep my overhead low.
Hmm.
Um, and I've always made it work. It's not easy being a freelancer, I'm sure in any discipline. Um, you're always hustling all the time. Um, but I feel I'm lucky. I've made a lot of connections, and that's what it all is like your community and your network. And you have to travel a lot and
Hmm.
play lots of styles of music. And yeah, of course, it I don't make very much money, and I really get tired of traveling sometimes, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. Like the
Mm.
life I've had has been so worth it.
Hmm. Yeah. Is there anybody in the history of music that you would have loved to play with? And that people find that to be a very hard question because, oh, was it Beethoven? Was it, Bob Dylan? Was it Hank Williams? Is there anybody in your musical world that you wish you could have sat down with and either sung songs with or played bass with or just hung with for a couple hours, like a hero?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, a lot of them are still alive, the names that come to mind. Um,
What names are these? I'm just curious, like if you want to name names, I'm just curious who you were.
I mean, I would love to I would love to play with Jane Siberry, sit
Hmm.
down with her and kind of like see like how she thinks about music and yeah, what it would be like to just jam with her.
Is that something you could arrange?
Potentially, I don't, maybe, yeah, one can dream.
Uh, well, you're
Um,
kind of in the dreaming mode now because you're
it's
going for
true.
stuff. So maybe there's something like that would be
It
good.
doesn't hurt to ask and reach out. Like,
No, it
uh,
never does.
yeah,
And sometimes you get surprised by the response.
yeah.
They're like, "Oh, I was hoping you would call me." You know, you never know, I guess.
You never know.
You never know. Um, so these new projects are coming out next spring for you, you think?
Yeah, I'm still trying to like wrap my head around what makes sense to t how to time it and everything. But it maybe it will be that John and I put out the EP in the spring because that's closer to being done right now, and then the
Yeah.
full band, full length record in the fall,
Yeah.
approximately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Well, let me know when they come out because I can try to promote them on my website and stuff. And
Thank you. I appreciate that.
do you ever play with the Faux Paws anymore? Or that's the time I met you here when you played with them, and that was they are a crazy good group.
Yeah, the Faux are amazing, and I'm so glad I got to play with them for a couple years.
Yeah, that's over though. I guess because they're New York, right? You're West Coast. It's kind of hard to get together, right?
That's not really the reason. I mean,
Oh,
Dean, the saxophone player, lives in Washington State,
oh, he
the
does.
Olympic
Oh,
Peninsula, and the other two are in Vermont.
okay.
Um, it's just the same reason I left Della. It was nothing personal. I just need to make space
Mm-hmm.
um, for other things.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
get it.
and I absolutely love all those guys, but it's their band, and
Hmm.
I'm just ready for more of a uh, creative input, creative chunk of what I'm doing.
Your band.
Yeah.
You want your
A
band.
band or like a band that I start with someone,
Hmm.
you know. But they're incredible. And Sartori's been playing with them lately.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice. Nice. Yeah, he's a pretty funky bass player. I really liked him.
Yeah.
Well, an hour has gone by, and it's been fascinating hearing about your music and your thoughts. And I wish you lots of luck with your new dreams.
Thanks, Chris.
I'm sure you'll be doing fine with them. So thank you again for coming on, and I will send you the link to this if you care to listen to yourself talk. I will send it to you.
And we'll see about that. But
Okay.
thanks for having me on.
All right. Thanks again.
All right. Take care.
Yep. Bye. I hope you enjoyed our podcast, and thanks for listening. Visit our website, guitartownct.com, for concert and podcast schedules, or just to send us a message. We'd love to hear from you.